Welcome back everyone to the part 2 of episode 9, where we're going to carry on with our introduction to window functions. So let's head on in to SQL Server Management Studio. Okay then, so with this next bit we're going to look at mixing regular functions in with window functions in the one pass. So if you remember from the previous video, we had this one here where we did all our summing in a little sub-select there, and then we brought this value into our query itself. Now we didn't need to go about doing our summing in group by in a separate sub-select. We could have simply put it in as such and then bringing an actual function on a column into our row number clause itself. So as you can see here, I'll put an order by and then use the sum function in there to get that value. So you can order by a function value there. Now you can also put it in your partition area. You can also put a function in there, like year for example is a function, sum is a function, etc. We can put it in on either part, the partition by and the order by, so that we can then get the results that we want partitioned using our row number column. So if we have a look at those results quickly, you can see that it's exactly the same as previously. So customer ID 3, here was his lowest amount, all the way up to his highest amount there, and then customer 4 started at 1, went up, and then customer 5, and so on. So we got rid of a sub-select there and just kept our code a lot leaner to produce the same results. Now obviously we needed a group by because we're bringing in our functions here, but that's not a problem. As you can see, it's taken into the group by is taking into account the functionality within here. We're grouping on the customer ID, so we're also okay to partition that there. And that's just a slightly easier way of doing the same thing. So, thinking about those functions mixed in with our good old row number, let's have a look at another little scenario. So the purchase manager is after some data for an analysis project on our suppliers. You need to write a query to return the following rows: supplier name, supplier category, the year of each purchase order, and of course we know all about the year function, and we also need the total number of ordered outers. Now that needs to be done per supplier per year. So once we've built up our query to return those values there, and obviously there's quite a few functions we need to bring in to build our columns. You've got a year function to think about, and you've got a sum function to give us the total number of ordered outers. Now once we've done that, she's also after some sort of indication to see out of each year the total number of ordered outers, ordered from highest to lowest amounts. So ultimately she wants an easy way to see which items we have ordered the most of, sorted down to the least for every year. So a little bit for you to think about there. If you're keen to give this one a try, then pause the video, and when you're ready we'll crack on with my answer. Alright then, let's begin. So we're after supplier name, supplier category, etc. So let's bring in the supplier name first of all, and we're looking at the purchasing schema. S, and we need the supplier category as well. Let's bring that one in quickly. Supplier categories. Supplier category ID. Category ID there. Fantastic. Let's get the columns in quickly. Supplier category name. There we have it. So we've got all that, and we need the year of each purchase order. So we're going to need to bring in our purchase orders, and we need to then bring in a function on that one. Purchase orders, join that up, and in fact we need to do it on the supplier ID. Supplier ID, easy money right there. We need to bring in the year of the purchase order date. So we're looking at the order date from the purchase orders table. There it is down there. But we just need to bring in the year. So we've covered this function before, and we've always put it into the where clause, but now we're actually going to bring it in as a column. We're going to call it order year. Brilliant. So we also need total number of ordered outers per supplier per year. And our ordered outers, as we all know, is in the purchase order lines table. And that joins to our purchase orders. Purchase order IDs, purchase order ID, brilliant stuff. There we go, we've got all our joins to create our columns there. So we're after total number of ordered outers. So we know the ordered outers are in our lines there. And we need to bring it in as a sum. Outers. Right then, now as we brought in an aggregate function there, we need to then do our little group by. So we're going to grab all these columns here. Remember that if you get the as there, if I copy all those down there, you can see that there's a little error there because we don't need our column names in our group by. You may have noticed that when you are doing your group bys. Just remove that so we just get the actual columns themselves coming in. So that's pretty much it with our group by. Let's see if that works quickly. And you can see we've got our suppliers, we've got the order year and the total outers there. Now it's a mixed bag, we've got 2013, 15, 16, etc. So order year, looks like a pretty good column to do some window functioning on, some partitions. And we've got total orders, a mixed bag of figures there, so we'll probably look to do those as an order by. So we're going to build this next bit next. So we're looking at the row number. Partition by. Really having struggles spelling partition, but there you go. And of course we wanted to see it out of each year, so we bring in that entire function there. And then we order it by the ordered outers, and we're looking at the sum as well on top of that. Now she wants it sorted from most to least, so we need to put that in as descending. And we'll just call that, once again, big surprise, row number. If I could spell that one right again, we're on to a good thing. So that's pretty much it. We know that our select statement works, and we just need to bring in that row number there. So let's run it off, see if we get what she's after. And there you have it. So in 2013, here's our first group. For our first order year, you got Fabricam smashing the orders out park with 593,000. So he's number one. Contoso at the end, squeaking in with 57 as our lowest amount. And then 2014, here's the group of 2014, Fabricam smashing it yet again, as well as in 2015 as well. Fabricam is coming up the winner there. Then last but not least, 2016, guess who came first yet again? It's good old Fabricam. They must really love us, with 1.8 mil. Is that 1.8 mil? Yes, it is. And last but not least, Datum, a new supplier, creeping in with a measly 221. So that's it for that little scenario. I'm sure the purchasing manager will be very happy with those results. How did you go with your query? Did you get something similar to this? If you did, awesome stuff. And that's simply how to bring functionality within your row number windowed functions. So partition by and the order by, we've got functions in there. Now you don't necessarily have to have these columns in your windowed function, actually in your select statement if you're bringing them in the windowed function. Obviously, with all the examples I've shown, we're pulling these values, putting them in the partitioning function there, so you can see what's going on. But quite often I've been asked to partition rows on specific values that aren't even being brought in within the select statement itself. So there you have it for that little scenario. Now, it's all well and good having some fantastic little row numbers against your figures, but what can we actually use the row number for? Well, what I used it quite a lot for in certain circumstances is to get effectively either the largest or the smallest value within a specific partition in order to just simply get that back. And it's really easy to do that using the row number. So if we look at this little bit of code here within the subselect, this is effectively very similar to some of the code I've written up here. But all we're doing, there's no summing or anything. We're basically getting the customer ID, partitioning by all the customers, and then ordering by the extended price, coming straight off our order lines table. We're just looking in a year of the invoice date of 2015. So we're going to be ordering by the extended price, descending, so that we know that the highest extended price will start with a row number of 1, and then it'll descend, going with less and less as the row numbers go up. So let's have a look at that. We're pulling with the customer IDs greater than 3. Let's have a look what we return with that. So here you can see we're partitioning by the customer ID. Then we're looking at the extended price descended. So row number 1, that'll be the maximum extended price we're getting from an invoice line row. And as you can see, it descends, it's less and less and less until the end of customer 3. And there's the lowest at 1380. Then we begin at customer 4. There's his highest value there from 2015, and it goes down and down and down till we're at customer 5, and then again it's the highest number there. But as you can see, the highest value is always at row number 1, no matter which customer it is. So we can use that to our favor. So once we've done our little bit of code here in a subselect, or you could have this in a CTE for example, we then use that within another join. So we're just going to call this A, and we're going to say, give me the customer ID, the invoice ID, and the extended price. We're going to call it the max price, and in our where clause we're simply going to state where the row number is equal to 1. So we know that row number 1 for every single customer is their maximum extended price. So when we run that off, you can see that we're only getting one row for each customer, and there we go, that are their maximum prices. Now of course, if we wanted to see their minimum prices, their lowest prices, just remove that there, and there you can see the lowest price for each customer. So that's one quick and easy way that we can use the row number to get either the lowest or the highest value within a partition, given the sorting type in our order by clause, either descending to get the maximum or ascending to get the smallest amount there. So it can be useful in these sort of scenarios. So let's have a look at that in action. Let's put it into practice with another little scenario I've put together for you guys. In this one, the warehouse team are trying to sweep up some adjustments to their latest stock takes and need the latest dated stock quantity totals of each product that have been shipped. Now, we're mainly looking at the stock item transaction table there. So you need to write a query to return the quantity totals, which is the sum of each stock item that has been sent to customers. So there's a little filter that you need to take into account there. And when you look at the stock item transaction table, you should be able to work out what to do with that filter. Now, we also need that to be only on the latest dated transaction occurrences. So we need to take that into account. Now, we also need to include the transaction date as well, along with that. So, what are we going to do then? First of all, we're going to build up a query to return the standard data columns that we're used to, mainly the stock item, the transaction date, and the total quantity per item per day. So we're looking at something similar to here, where we're building up our tables and we're returning some rows there. One of which looks like it'll have some sort of aggregate function on there as well. Now, in step 2, we then need to think about adding in a row number function column, just like we put in here. Deciding which of these above columns that we've got here to use in the partition by clause and which one to put into the order by clause. Now, we just need one in each in this example, so you just need to decide which one goes there. And then lastly, once you're happy with your query there, you can either use it as I've done here in a sub-select, or put it in a CTE and bring it in that way to your query, and then use it within a final select statement that extracts the data based on the latest dated transaction. So you need to decide how you want to do your order by, and then simply extract the row number in another outer select there. So if you want to give that a try, crack on, pause this video and write out some code and see how you go. Now if you get a little bit stuck, don't worry, because we'll be going through the answer with you when you are ready. So then, let's carry on with the code. Now we know that we need the stock item, and that comes from the warehouse, stock items there. We're going to call it I, and we need the stock item name, that is. What's it called? Stock item name. So there we have it. We've got that one in there. Next we need the transaction date, and that is from our stock item transactions table, and that is down here, also in the warehouse schema. We're going to call it T stock item ID equals I stock item ID. There we go. So join that one up. Now we need to pull in the transaction date, whatever that might be called, on our stock transactions table. So we've got a transaction occurred when in there. So we're going to be pulling that one. Transaction occurred when, and that is, if we hover over it, it's a date time 2. So what we need to do to convert that to a date, we can actually just leave it as it is there. No need to convert that one. You can if you want to, although there's no need to, and you can simply cast that as date, and we call it transaction date. But again, you don't necessarily need to do that, so if you didn't do that, it doesn't really matter. That's the transaction date there, and we also need the total quantity per item per day, so that's more of a grouping thing. So if we look at our table again, we've got a quantity in there, so we'll put in our quantity. And we'll simply call it total quantity. Excellent, so we're getting there. And of course, we'll do our group by. And there we have our sum function taken care of there. Now there is also a little bit of filtering, as mentioned, sent to customers. So let's have another look at our table here. So we know that there's a customer ID there, and if we select everything from the entire table, if we have a more of an in-depth look at that table, if we select all the rows, you'll see we have a customer ID in there. Scroll down, as we get to the bottom, you'll see there's some nulls in there. So those obviously probably came in from a supplier, as opposed to, there we go, we've got a supplier ID. So those came in from the supplier, those went out to a customer. Easy money. So we'll do that there in a little where clause. Customer ID is not null. So that way we're making sure that it's just everything sent to the customers. Now if you missed this little filter, don't worry too much about it. The main thing of course is to work on the row number function, etc. And then if you did miss it, just simply put it in and check your results again. Okay, so let's see if that works. There we go, transaction date, etc, etc. Happy with that. So let's go on to step 2 then, where we start building our row number functionality. Over partition by. Now what are we going to partition it by then? So if we're after the latest dated transaction, that's probably telling me that it's going to be in the order by clause, because we want the latest one, so we need to be able to sort those. So that would be in the order by clause, and we want to see the quantity totals of each stock item. So it seems to me that the stock item actually is what we want to partition it by. So we're looking for each stock item. So let's then partition it on that. And as we mentioned, we're going to look at the transaction date for our order by functionality. So we're just going to simply copy that in like that, and we want the latest dated one, so we will put in the descending there. Now of course you didn't have to put that in, but when you check your result it'll probably be some low values, or it's a very low date, so you just simply change that back to descending, and we're going to call that row number yet again. So let's have a look at that, see if it works. So there's each stock item, row 1, 2, 3, etc, etc. Now the total quantity there, actually there's our latest dated transaction date. So as you can see, it descends, it gets earlier and earlier and earlier, but that one there is the latest for that item. So we're happy that our function works there. So we can then wrap another select statement in there. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And what do we want? We want these values here. Didn't do too well on the select there. And we'll line them up for you. Like so. And we'll just simply call that A. So that's your subselect. Done and dusted. Pretty straightforward. Easy to put in. Very similar to what we've done before. And of course, we only want to pull the latest dated occurrence. So we're looking at a row number of 1. Simply put in your where there. Row number equals 1. Easy enough. So that should just pull the latest value per stock item name. The latest dated occurrence. Now as you can see, although we built in a sum, bringing in the quantity, we didn't use that at all in our partitioning by or our order by, because we just wanted the latest occurrence per stock item, and we just wanted to see what the quantity was for that one. So if we run that off, there you go, there you have it. So as we saw, very first one, 3XL, that was 2016, 31st of the 5th, and there you have your total quantity of minus 216. And we can see it's per every single item going down the list there. Most of which is in 2016, end of May, 30th, 31st, etc. So slightly differing dates there for you, but we now have our data set ready to send on. Now you'll also notice total quantity is a negative value. Now how stock normally works in databases is transactional, so similar to finance and accounting, where anything negative is pretty much stock going out, and in this case it's stock going out to a customer, so our stock levels get depleted as those items go out. If we have stock coming in from a supplier, then that negative will obviously change into a positive as we increase our own stock as we get it in from the suppliers. Now if you just simply wanted to change that round to a positive value for your little extract you're sending on, simply multiply that by -1. And if we run it off again, you can see it gets rid of that sign. So we can say our total quantity was 216 shipped out on that date. Okay, how did you all go with that one? Hopefully pretty straightforward and easy on there. So that's a few examples. First of all, trimming down our select statement to get rid of additional sub-selects, etc. Bringing in functions within our partitioning clause, our row numbers, and then actually using our row numbers to produce a meaningful result set, which we saw when we ran off this query here. Now, if you did this as a CTE, we can easily change this around to do just that. So if we cut that, and we simply say CTE as, and simply from CTE as A, then that's pretty much the same thing, but with a CTE as opposed to a sub-select. So you may have done it this way around yourself to get exactly the same answer. There you have it. CTE or sub-select, your choice, guys. Okay, so that wraps up the second video for part 2. We're going to still work a little bit on the row number windowed function, where we're going to look at adding more columns into the partition and looking at the row number versus another function that will tend to give the same results, but not in all scenarios. So everyone, that's it for this part. Please join me in the third video of part 2, where we'll wrap up the row number before moving on to some more partition functions. Until we meet again in the next video, everyone, I hope you have a wonderful day.